Okay, so let's talk about posture, how to hold your violin the right way. And you'll see that this is actually fairly easy to understand, particularly if you compare it with a few other instruments. In our case, it doesn't really depend whether you're left-handed or right-handed, because chances are you will always hold your violin the same way. For example, maybe you know someone who knows how to play the guitar and they also happen to be left-handed. And so you might have noticed that they tend to hold the guitar the other way. This isn't always the case, but there's a tendency for this to happen. And so if you are like the other 90% or around 90% of the population, right-handed, then you would hold your guitar like this. And the same thing happens with our violin, and we don't ever really do it the other way. However, just like with everything else in life, there are exceptions, and we've had throughout history a number of people who've actually held and played the violins the other way, perhaps most notably Charlie Chaplin. Now, you may or may not know this, but Chaplin was actually a brilliant violinist, and he was actually very close and intimate friends with many great and famous musicians back in his day. And it also happened that he played the violin the other way. But it's not as easy as just holding the violin with the other hand, because you'll see the violin actually has a lot of internal parts, a lot of internal components that are made, that are actually set up that way so that it produces the best possible tone when you hold it like this. For example, on the left side of the instrument we have the bass bar on the inside of the violin, which is meant to amplify the lower frequencies of the instrument. And so if you hold it the other way, you would have to flip the order of the strings as well, which means that you would also have to flip the order of the internal components. So if you're left-handed and you're really adamant, you're really determined to play the violin the left-handed way, you would have to get a violin that's been specifically set up for that. But that doesn't really concern us today. Let's just call it general information, because chances are that 99.9999% of you have a regular violin, and so we're going to learn how to use it and play it the regular way. So let's talk about how that's going to work. Now, the first thing you want to keep in mind is actually the angle that you need to have with your instrument. Now, I've seen some cases of people who are completely unfamiliar, and the first thing they're going to do out of instinct is hold the violin in front of them like this, between their shoulders, completely in the middle of their bodies, facing forward. This is an extreme, and of course there's people as well who might have an idea of what a violinist is supposed to look like, and they know the violin actually goes to the side, so they'll do something like this, on top of the shoulder, completely sideways, completely 90 degrees. If you could see me from the right angle, you see that everything is along the same plane. My shoulders, my arm, my back, my violin, my head, and this is also an extreme. And we all know that nothing good comes from being an extremist, and so the best thing to do is to actually find a place along the middle, more or less at a 45-degree angle, kind of slightly facing towards the left, so that then you can turn your head slightly that way and rest it comfortably on the chin rest. Now, another very important point is that you should allow the curvature of your shoulder rest. It doesn't matter what kind of shoulder rest you have, they're all made for that specific purpose, to follow the curvature of your shoulder. So allow that to sit comfortably right on your shoulder to find the best point of stability. So slightly towards the left. Make sure you're not leaning too far back. You'll see if you get this long tendon right here that's jutting out of your neck, that's generally a good indication that you're turning too far. So try to bring everything a little bit more forward so that it feels a little bit more compact and within reach, kind of generally at a 45-degree angle right here. Now, another very important point is that when you set your violin on your shoulder, you don't want to do this. You don't want to overly change your posture or change it at all if possible. For example, here, my shoulders naturally are like this, and when I set my violin up there, I don't change my posture at all. That's the best thing you can do to ensure that you always remain natural, producing a natural tone, and that you don't get any tension or any unwanted pain later down the line. So make sure that your body basically behaves as if there's no violin at all. So you try this a few times, and then if you want to test that stability even further, then you can go ahead and slightly release your violin. Maybe set your hand on your lap if you're sitting down, or just relax your arm, and make sure that everything stays where it's supposed to be without lots of tension here. So if you have to speak like this, that likely means you're tensing too hard. So no tension in your jaw or anywhere else, and just stay relaxed. And once you feel comfortable with that, now it's time to put your violin and your bow together.